What is up, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about my neuroscience minor. If you guys are new to my channel, my name is Kayla. I am a forensic psychology and sociology double major with a triple minor in law enforcement, gerontology, and neuroscience. The information is always down in the description box just in case you guys were wondering. But yeah, today I'm going to be talking about my neuroscience minor, some of the classes that I've taken, and kind of how I got into neuroscience and all of that stuff. If you want to hear all about my neuroscience minor, then just keep on watching. Okay, so neuroscience is basically the study of the brain. If you guys have been following me, last fall I had to take my neuroscience lab, and you guys seen I was vlogging in there a little bit. I had to do like Nernst equations, and we dissected a sheep brain and seen like all of the different areas of the brain, like the cerebellum, the optic chiasm, the frontal lobe, and all of that stuff. So how I fell in love with neuroscience. So if you guys don't know, I am going to be going to graduate school to become a clinical psychologist, to be exact, a clinical geriatric neuropsychologist. I know that's a lot, but so I've always kind of been interested in how the brain plays a role in behavior and psychology and things like that, because you know, we always talk about like schizophrenia and the type of neurotransmitters that are responsible for different mental illnesses. So that's kind of how I got into neuroscience a little bit. And then I ended up taking a behavioral neuroscience class, which is the first class that you have to take for your neuroscience minor. And this was before I declared it as a minor. I was just taking it because it's also an option to take for a psychology elective. So I took it, and I fell head over heels in love with neuroscience, especially when we got to the clinical psychology part and we were talking about neurotransmitters and the different theories, especially in like dementia and things like that. So that's, after I finished that class, I got an A. I ended up declaring neuroscience as my minor. So ever since then, I've been in love with it. I love the brain. If you guys follow me on Twitter, I'm always retweeting brain pictures, and so some people, they're kind of disgusting, but they're very interesting, especially the videos where they're like performing surgery on the brains, and you can kind of see like there was a video that I retweeted last night or the night before last of a stroke, and it kind of makes you wonder, okay, so this is where it's at on the brain, this is what that part of the brain is responsible for, and you kind of think of how that's going to affect their behavior. So it's like really cool. I love neuroscience. So that's how I fell in love with neuroscience. So then, like I said, I took my neuroscience lab last fall, and like I said, we dissected a sheep brain. I actually got to hold a human brain. We were actually supposed to dissect human brains, but with budget cuts, if you guys don't live in Illinois, the governor is a shithead and he didn't sign a budget. So most schools, colleges, and everything in the state of Illinois didn't have a budget, and it was just all bad. And so yeah, so we could not dissect human brains because it's very, very, very expensive, and I'm sure if they were to add that to our student bill, a lot of people would not have been able to pay for it. My neuroscience lab was a very small class. I want to say there was like 8 students in it. It wasn't a lot of students at all. Plus it was at 8 a.m. It was terrible. But yeah, we learned a lot in that class. We learned about like the action potential. We calculated all of that. We did the math for it, which I was actually pretty decent at. You guys know I suck at math. So I really loved my neuroscience lab. We learned a lot. All of the labs that I've written, I got A's in, and I also had to do a final paper for that class, and I actually did it on PTSD in the brain, and I got an A on that as well. And it was very interesting looking up all of the different physical things that happens to the brain when a person has PTSD, and looking at the differences that PTSD has on the brain. And you're looking at a person who has a normal, healthy brain versus a person who has PTSD. It was like interesting. The images were amazing. It was just an amazing thing. So that's something you guys are interested in. Definitely look it up. I had a wonderful time writing that paper, but yeah. So basically, a lot of the classes that I've had to take for neuro have been under the psychology department, I guess you can say, because neuroscience at my school as a minor is under psychology, like it's a psychology minor. But there are a ton of other classes you can take. You can take organic chemistry, you can take genetics, you can take anatomy and physiology. A lot of classes that you can take are chemistry, biology classes, of course. It's a science class, so please keep that in mind if you want to be a neuroscience minor or even a neuroscience major, that it's going to be a lot of science classes. So if you're not good at science, you may have a hard time with it. But like I said, I love chemistry for whatever reason. A lot of people hate chemistry, but I actually really enjoy chemistry. I was going to take anatomy and physiology, but I was like, you know, I'm not really, no. So yeah, like I said, a lot of the classes are science-based, and then you have like anatomy and physiology, which is a science class, but it's, when I say science, I mean like biology and chemistry. And so yeah, I really love my neuroscience minor. It's not as many credit hours, obviously, as if I was a neuroscience major. I think I only needed like 21 credit hours for my minor. But even still, like, I loved all the classes that I've taken. So if you are interested in neuroscience, I highly recommend it. Like I said, fell in love. I love clinical psychology, but I was also interested in how the brain plays a part in that, because we're always trying to figure that out. You know, we're always talking about neurotransmitters, and we're always talking about how different things that can affect the brain, like alcohol or drugs or strokes or things like that, how that affects the brain and how that in turn affects the behavior depending on what part of the brain is affected by whatever phenomena happens. So it is really amazing to see how things start to connect. I'm also very interested in dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease, and trying to find a definitive cause and also a definitive cure. As you guys know, there is neither one of those has come about yet. So I'm very interested in that. So we've looked at different theories in terms of Alzheimer's disease, and you know, they're looking at the plaques in the brain and the neurotransmitter dopamine and just different things like that. So it's very interesting to see how the brain kind of comes together and connects with clinical psychology, and that's why I fell in love with neuroscience. I follow a lot of neurosurgery type of Instagram pages just because it's so interesting to see how they deal with the different things that happen in the brain. Like, it is amazing, like brain bleeds and just different things like that. It's amazing. It's kind of disgusting if you're not into something like that. It's definitely something that you have to get used to. I know there was one person in my neuroscience lab that was just like so squeamish, like she did not want to hold the human brain. Just dissecting the sheep brain in and of itself is just so disgusting for her. She really had a hard time with it. So it's definitely something that if you're a very squeamish person, then you might not like it. But like I said, I'm very interested in how everything kind of comes together and how the dots start to connect. So that's why I fell in love with neuroscience. I know a lot of people are probably like, okay, you want to be a clinical psychologist, how does that correlate to how does neuroscience correlate with clinical psychology? And that is how, and again, my major is forensic psychology, so I'm also going to take all of these practices into the prisons and try to rehabilitate the mentally ill population, and maybe even like rapists and things like that. I know that's a very big thing to say because a lot of people don't think that rapists can be rehabilitated, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their brains, but I'm just saying there are some people who may have a neurological imbalance or a neurological issue that needs to be fixed, and then that may cause their behavior. Now, again, not necessarily saying that I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's going on with rapists, but I mean like the mentally ill population in general. So yeah, I feel like that was a really short video. I didn't really know what all to say about my neuroscience minor because it's a minor and you don't really have to take as many classes for it. So if you guys have any other questions, as always, you can leave them down in the comments and I will answer them. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you leave, and I will see you guys in the next video.